Well, then let's begin our discussion on the introduction of Cyberpunk and building off of what it was that we discussed last time. Now, last time, pardon me, who knew soda made you burp? No warning labels ever on these bottles. My gosh. You'd think by now, right, everyone? Let's get this up here. So, last session was us talking about Cyberpunk on an approach. What kind of a game is it? What can you expect to play as a player? What can you expect to run as a game master? We made some comparisons to other systems where the mechanics of Cyberpunk were kind of like a fusion between D&D and Vampire the Masquerade, if that helps. Now, if you've only played one and not the other, or if you've played neither, that might not help. But very simply, your stat plus your skill plus a D10 roll. And if there's a conditional modifier, you could throw that in too. Meet or beat the target number, boom, there you go. We were not getting into the weeds or the minutia of the rules of the, this is how you make an attack, this is how you, blah, 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 right? We're not looking at stat blocks, we're not looking at all that. What is the concept of this system? What would it feel like to play in or run this system? Now that we are familiar, and we've talked about, do you want to run Final Fantasy VII, the role-playing game, the tabletop role-playing game? Use this system, absolutely. Do you want to, do you want to switch it over to Dieselpunk from Cyberpunk? Do you want to make it super Cyberpunk or only slightly Cyberpunk? Do you want to play out in a rural area, or do you want to be in a mega city like Night City? You have a lot of options, and there's many ways you can approach this. You are not forced in to only ever playing in Night City. Or, you can only tell this story, or you can only tell the story of Cyberpunk 2077. What I want to discuss in tonight's workshop is the immersion into the setting. How can you, as the GM, as the game master, immerse your players? Or how can you, as the player, immerse yourself into the game? Again, we're not really going to talk rules. If you want to bring up something, if you want to ask how something works, that's fine. I'm not here to burden you with charts and page references and all this other stuff. We're taking a nice, easy approach to Cyberpunk because I would love for you all to give this system a look. I think you all can have a ton of fun with it, even if your first game and your only game has ever been D&D. That's pretty much how all of us have met, as that's been the majority of the content on the channel. But this channel is in its 6th year. This channel has grown. Many of you have shown interest, maybe now after, you've got some role play experience under your belt playing D&D. Maybe you want to try something new. Maybe you do want to try challenging yourself to a new way of thinking or approaching role play. Or you would like to handle topics in a role-playing setting that are heavier than what D&D tends, not that you can't in D&D, but that D&D tends to avoid or be sanitized of. And A part of this is going to be immersion into the world. And how can we immerse you in this game? Now, there's many supplements, there's stuff on Roll20, and I'll even showcase that because I have our setup. We could talk about cyberpsychosis as well. As I have the Roll20 game open, and I can show you what I have done to help immerse my players in that as well. Now, in any game, in any game, one of the biggest factors is going to be you as the GM describing to your players what they sense. What is it that they see, hear, feel, touch, smell? Even the sixth sense of what are they getting a sense of? Which might even have a manifestation through the upgrades that they have. There might be, they have a built-in ghost box or something if you want to explore the paranormal. Now, Cyberpunk doesn't necessarily have a paranormal consideration built into it. I mean, you can always talk about things like the Ghost in the Machine, or the anime based on the manga Ghost in the Shell. You can explore that. There's not exactly like skeletons and zombies. Although you could make a strong case, like what Dingo Panic brought up. If someone succumbs to cyberpsychosis, they effectively become a wandering monster. So there are cases where there, I guess, are, in a sense, monsters that will roam around. If you need some warm-up for chat people, you can look at the Cyberpunk 2077 anime, Battle Angel Alita, and or Ghost in the Shell. Yep, those are very good warm-ups. Absolutely, Dingo Panic. There are some others. You could probably watch Texnalize. You could watch Ergo Proxy. Ergo Proxy is in my personal top 10. You could even watch Akira. Akira can help give you some warm-up and immersion as well. So what I would recommend, speaking of, thank you, Dingo Panic. You are going to get a wench kiss. Dingo Panic, I am a very well-cultured gentleman, I assure you. I'll just leave it at that. Describe what's happening here. It's great if you look at the art. And in fact, now some of you might roll your eyes. Just give me a moment. Because I created this not just as the intro for the role-playing session. I also created this because I want to use this as a teaching tool throughout our time together. So bear with me a moment if you've already seen this. It's less than 2 minutes, okay? Now, when we go through these scenes, especially because this system tends to favor a lot more street level adventuring. In D&D, you are the big damn heroes. You start out as the son of the farmer who maybe was a town guard in his heyday, and then by level 20, what's the trope, like the anime trope, like you're toppling God. Okay, you're the big damn heroes. You go out, you start in the little village, and you end up saving the village, then the county, and then you save the kingdom, and then the region, and then the world, and it's everything seems to expand and grow always and outwards. In a system and a setting like this, you're going to find more often than not, and you can always run something that is a big grand adventure if you wish, but you're going to tend to find this is a lot more street level, claustrophobic. There are people everywhere. There are things everywhere. And when you're setting the scene, it's very important to provide that immersion for your players as the GM, or to lean into the immersion as your character is a living, breathing, artificially or not, part of this world. Yep, many don't, Osric. Yep. The verticality. That things are just stacked on top of each other, as that is also symbolic of your character just being a speck of dust, right? So from here, we pan up from, all right, in the foreground, we have someone hailing a cab. And look, the buildings just don't stop. We even fade out. It goes so far it's blurry. Then we have just high rises after high rises in this megapolis. And where a neighborhood could just be a stack. There could be 1,000 families living in a building. That's your block, effectively. And for the most part, you might hardly ever journey or meet people outside of your apartment complex. There is an enormity, yet a claustrophobia. See, now we come down here, boom. Everything is small, confined. Look at these narrow alleys. How can things be so big and grand, and yet we still have these side alleys and such? And so when you have something like this, in fact, I'm going to give an example. As soon as I find it. I have it, I promise. If you have atmospheric music, what's going on? If you're describing this scene, I certainly hope that you are describing, how does the rain feel? We see rain. I wonder, if you lived in this city and it was raining, and I told you that the rain feels warm. What does that tell you? Keep it PG-13. And the rain feels warm. What would that tell you about this place? Well, in that case, the rain might feel tingly. I don't know so much about warm. It could be that it's muggy. The rain certainly isn't cold and refreshing. If I described warm rain to you, because a lot of us are used to, oh man, this is so refreshing. On a hot summer day, you can still get a nice cold rain. Well, what if you're in the middle of a city that produces a lot of heat? And the heat, because of all of the people and everything happening and the electricity and everything happening, there's just so much heat rising up that even when the rain falls down, by the time it reaches you, it's been warmed by the city already. The heat of 25,000 people has already rushed past that droplet and warmed it. What are the things that you see and hear? Well, if this person's out walking the dog, so to speak, are you describing the whirling quadcopter of a drone? Or the sounds of a maglev train passing by? What would you be hearing in this alleyway? The groans of the people that were just defeated? Or what is echoing down through the alleyway? What's going on over here? Look, we just had a fight. And there's something there. What's making red light in here? Is this just someone who wanted to just keep their head down and stay out of the fight? Is there a family of 5 living right in this alleyway where this confrontation took place? You also wouldn't have that nice petrichor smell, that earthy smell attached to just being near rain itself, says S. Wild. In this city, I imagine you're just smelling oils and muck and dirt. Atmospheric sounds from electricity cables? Yep, that could be too. You get that a lot. Have any of you seen Serial Experiments Lane? Also, if you want to talk about a good a prep anime to watch for Cyberpunk, have you seen Serial Experiments Lane? S. Wild, I love the earthy smell when it rains. I haven't smelled that in ages. It's a godly smell, says Dingo Panic. Yeah, it's up there with like, a freshly cut lawn. Do you know how many people would live their entire lives and never know that smell? Even like the smell of ozone from a lightning strike, because they're used to it, because that means something is shorted out in them with someone else. You pass by and that's like someone just farted. Like, oh dude, like you got some ozone, man. And you're like, my arm's acting up again. Sorry about that, excuse me, right? You got to say excuse me because you're crop dusting people with your ozone from your malfunctioning arm. Those are the sights, sounds, and smells that you're gonna get in this setting. And you've never thought of that before. Like, wow, I actually am going to be equating farts to malfunctioning cyberware. Yes. Right? Think about that. And again, that will get you into what is going on. If you're describing this scene as a GM to your players. Oh, Aeon Flux too, yeah. What would you describe here? So for those of you in chat, we're going to make this interactive, okay? This is the scene. I want you to tell me, what do you hear? Like, we see what we see, okay? Don't tell me what I see. I want you to describe to me, what do I hear? What do I smell? Do I taste anything? I want you to bring some immersion. Okay, the sound of cyber implants movement. So you might describe as the lawman walks up. You can hear the servos in his legs, bringing him closer. You hear the blaze of guns. I smell smoke and the smell of blood. That coppery smell, clanking of armor and guns. Okay. Now here's a question for you, Rep Artist. Looks like this person lost their leg. And, as such, it looks like this might be their blood. Well, our blood has a metallic smell to it, right? Because we need iron to carry oxygen through our system. For someone like this, what does this smell like? Have you ever thought about describing the smell of artificial blood? I want to see if I can find something here that would be very interesting to also make a point. Yeah, I think this will have it. Although, I don't need this for the image quality. I just want to make sure it has the particular... Alright, this might have it, and I can skip ahead if needed. 1 second, let me get this set up for you. Estwild says Acrid farms explosives, loud voices sent out through vocal filters. Probably lots of sirens and alarms from stray shots. Yeah, and hey, by the way, if you can use it at your game or in some way, don't be afraid to use accents, modulate your voice, or to actually use an electronic one. Because you can always do something like here, let me find it here. This one isn't in the usual lineup here, so I actually have to hunt for this one. Hold on a moment. Otherwise, I'll just find one with... that's fine, this one will work.
On the ground. I said, on the ground. Do you not understand me? Remain motionless. Do not move.
Yeah, I can, Rip Artist. All right, let me, I think I'm at the part that I need to show off here. Now, if you all aren't instantly going to turn to dust and fade away, I want you to realize that this game, at least this clip from the game, is 16 years old, I want to say. So have fun with that. Oh. Uh-oh. Here, before we get too far. The call to adventure is there. Hans Half-Elven is coming in strong with a raid of 23. Welcome, Hans and crew. There we go. We have our shout-outs for your boy, Hans Half-Elven. Thank you very much for raiding in. You're very welcome for the shout-out. Hey, how was your DM help? Your own workshop going? Yep. Yeah, I'm sorry, not 5, 4. Yeah. All right, I'm close. Yeah, right. Now all of a sudden, all of us are aging like in like in the Indiana Jones movie, right? Now, this scene is going to be interesting for research and immersion into a cyberpunk world, and I'm going to showcase why. Han says was great. We did a workshop on helping DMs give their PCs purpose for roleplay through a little system. I read that and I really enjoyed that, Hans. And thank you for stepping up and helping out people do that. Yep, that's very awesome of you, my friend. What do you hear? What do you hear? Close, Travesty. This is a lesson in immersion. Have you all heard what's going on with these robots? They're called geckos. Ah, Afterfov. Bullets striking metal. Where's the cattle, by the way? Afterfov. Did you see any cattle in the streets? I don't think I've seen a single cow. Ah. Dingo might be onto something. So, frantic mooing. Yes. If you are deploying, I mean, there might still be some kind of dog left in here, or this is just like a, like one of the Boston Dynamics ones. The geckos are making mooing sounds, frantic cattle braying, because psychologically that freaks people out itself, let alone coming from a very large robot. It is a form of psychological warfare. You expect it, and it could still be scary, okay? But you would expect a dog-shaped thing to make dog-shaped noises. You as the GM might very well have this dog come up to someone and instead of barking, screams. Ah! 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 I'm trying to keep it down to not like super blow out everyone's ears. Can you imagine the form of psychological warfare to just have this thing non-stop screaming at you, or making this dog coming up and just mooing? Delport says that's why hyenas are so unnerving. Like the sirens on German fighter planes during World War II. The Wilhelm scream. Ah! Yeah. Hi, heretic. Yeah, you're not prepared for it. And when you can load in any kind of a voice or voice maker into yourself or a robot or something like that, yeah, you could have an enforcer robot. So when you're making the scene, yes, yes, Cyneo. And by the way, I'm sorry if I didn't give you a proper howdy coming over from Hans Halfelven. And thank you all for coming over from that crew. You're gonna lurk post-stream self-care and getting ready for work. Be well, my friend. Cheers to you. Let me give you a Glublin cheer right back to you. Thank you for coming over, and I'll see you around, sir. So I want you to think about that, right? This is a different world. Now, can you do this in D&D? Of course, you can have magical effects that that are even cantrip level, that you can have this sort of stuff happen or seem to happen. This is not magic. This is every day. Even though it's unexpected, especially for someone that you want to immerse into the world that you want to run. And so you may very well, let's take that this isn't some sort of I don't know, whatever operation, military, police, anti-terrorist or something like that. Let's just say that this is just a dude on the street with a dog, just jamming out. As you describe the dog walking past, it can recognize, other creatures around and just simply go, "Hey, how's it going?" as it passes. Let's not even talk about psychological warfare or trying to, do some sort of like authoritarian action. Let's just say it's a dude walking a dog. The dog can very well just say, "Hey, what's up?" It's that kind of a thing that you should be aware of. That when you're describing street scenes, there might be a lot of ambient traffic. There might be a lot of ambience, gunfire, or conversations in several languages. And especially in certain parts of your setting, the lack of noise. Uh-oh. Let's break it down, everyone. There we go. Everyone, welcome. Coffee Cat Presents and crew coming in strong from the Chroma Company sequel campaign known as Rebirth, a D&D tale. Let's give a shout out to Coffee Cat Presents and a shout out to Coffee Cat Presents. Welcome. We're talking about immersion in the cyberpunk setting, telling your tale, setting the scene, etc. But please do give Coffee Cat a look. This is your 4-year anniversary, And in addition to your VTM and your D&D, you might also be running some Caffeine Fix art streams with some goodies for people who stop by. And don't forget that if you are so used to, you know what? This might be an interesting way of explaining it. Are there any of you out there right now that have spent almost all of your life in a big city? This is not a call out. This isn't if something is good or bad or whatever. Rip Artist. All right. Rip Artist, what's it like for you to go out to the country? What's it like for you when you can actually hear crickets at night? Or there's actually a lack of noise? When you don't hear traffic, and you don't hear trains, and you don't hear other human beings, and you hear the bugs and the animals and the wind. It freaks you out. Yeah. The silence is panic-inducing, is deafening. Silence can be a very, very powerful thing to describe in a setting like this. Yeah. Yes, I know. You've seen people that they have to have a fan on or something. I lived in the country until I was 11. A big city for the past 35. So don't just employ noises or even uncommon stuff like a dog walking by and saying hi. Dingo, there's a quick hack that does that. In what way do you mean, Dingo? This freeze frame looks like the bar in Star Wars inside the TARDIS. Well, Delport, since we're talking about immersive storytelling in Cyberpunk, because that is a big part of telling a Cyberpunk story. What would we be hearing, smelling, tasting? You know, this is not a big open area. This is not the streets. You are in a bar of some kind. There's a very quiet space in Minnesota. The longest someone's been able to exist in there is 45 minutes. Oh, yeah, so you can just turn off your ears if you need to, Dingo. Heretic says a sudden lack of noise can be terrifying in a situation where one is so used to a certain level of ambient noise. Yep, it is. Very much so, Heretic. So just as much as you would get a big... like the geckos that we saw from Metal Gear 4, these big terrifying robots, you're like, these are war machines, and then they come up and they go moo. And as much as that is startling, confusing, and terrifying because it's supposed to be, or just a dog on the street going, hey, what's up? Employ silence as well. Well, I mean, you could get into that too, Cyneo. You know, that is part of, right? You're describing the people and the culture. What are they wearing or what aren't they wearing? Because how comfortable are people with what's being shown? If you describe, in fact, this is another really good thing that you can do. Talking about things that could get you ready for a Cyberpunk game if you watch The Matrix, right? The Lady in Red. You can make a very good use of the Lady in Red because in a world where everyone has augmentations, your Lady in Red is someone who just seemingly doesn't. And now all of a sudden, by the lack of glowing collars, of 4 eyes, of cyber ears, people composing, making video games, composing techno music and going, "I hate your face," and then running away to their offices. If any of you catch the reference, then good on you, if we're going to continue a cultured conversation. The person without augmentation stands out. That's your lady in red. And if you know the scene I'm talking about in Matrix, there you go. Yeah, the totally normal person. 2 USB ports and splitting up the cams worked. Very good. I'm glad we're able to help you out with that, GMV. And hey, Satirical Sage, when I worked in film, there were some booths used for audio recording that were soundproofed. You can walk in and not hear anything. I found it quite peaceful and relaxing. Sir Fluffy Buns, hello to you as well. You can have your mooing war machines actually dispense milk? Yeah? Yep. Lived in the country most of my life, now living the past 5 years in the city. I now know the difference between fireworks and gunfire, says Afterfob. Cyneo says, now I kind of want to do a cyberpunk story where the antagonist is a farmer with a cyber limb that turns into farm implements. Well, hey, what's rural life like? Someone's got to grow the crops. Someone's got to tend the animals. Not everyone gets to live in the city where there's no room to do that sort of stuff. So there would be farmers and rural people who have augmentations as well. Look, and even in our real life, do any of you live out in the countryside? If so, you'll find that while the country, the rural culture is often at opposition with city life, you can go out to the country and people still have the latest iPhone or Galaxy, or they still drive fancy cars. It doesn't just become all of a sudden everyone has a 50-year-old rust bucket and everyone's playing banjos on the front porch. I mean, you might find that too in places, but there's still a lot of people who live a quiet rural life who have access to all the tech. So, all of this, and again, I will stress how smell is very important. When you are describing something, especially when you are surrounded and heaped upon by restaurants and people and booster gangs and hover cars and all sorts of stuff. You might have ventilation, sewer lines. Who knows what's traveling through these pipes? Who knows what you can hear? What can you hear coming out of this window? Well, let's keep it PG-13. Because there's still also some biological needs that need taken care of. But of all of our senses, the sense of smell is the only one directly connected to our brain. It's a powerful smell. The sense of smell, in many cases, can help trigger fight or flight. Have any of you experienced? You walked into a place and someone threw up, and that acrid scent hits your nostrils, and you go, and you got to hold it back. You weren't sick. You have no idea what happened, but as soon as that tang tickles your nose, your brain goes, well, it looks like it's time. So when you describe a place especially where a lot of people live, scent is a very, very important descriptor. What can you smell about the people? Do they smell new? Oh, it's that, the new chrome smell. Or is it that, ugh, that's an old smell. Does it smell like a body? Does it smell like oil? Does it smell like ozone? And if so, what's going on with it? Does something smell like perfume and is trying to cover up the rancidness of the city and to be inviting? Does it smell like a good old-fashioned, this noodle shop has been in Night City and has survived the booster gangs and the changing of hands of the city government. We have a 100-year-old noodle shop in Night City, and every time you walk in there, it just feels like everything of the outside world just is, it just disappears. And you smell the noodles, and you smell the different vegetables and broths and everything else. And for that moment, you forget that you are in just a hive. And you get a moment of peace where you might be chromed out. But you take those wooden chopsticks. Wow, this place still has wooden or bamboo chopsticks. And you take a moment to eat your noodles. And then when that door slides open again, you're blasted. Beep, beep, beep. Pop, pop, pop. Hey, come back here with that. Hey, I got things for sale. Moo, right? This is the immersion I'm talking about. Again, this system needs that kind of storytelling to really help it come to life. Not that D&D doesn't. But D&D has a different general approach and scale. And primarily, I'm going to make a lot of distinctions between D&D since that's how most of us have met. There are many of our first games were D&D, and that is our sense of adventure. I'm trying to get you comfortable with a different type of storytelling through this system. Can you hear the buzzing of the lights? Can you hear his respirator breathing? What's going on here? Shatter, shatter, crumble. Up here, there's someone fighting, and there's also someone dressed like a superhero. If you're describing this scene, kapow! Crumble, crumble. Huh? Whoa, I don't know about this one. I don't know if I like the date on this one. Whoa, look out, lady! Look out, guy! As the little kid sees the falling debris. Can you hear the roaring of the fire? Can you feel its heat? Look even in this scene, how claustrophobic is this? How stacked, how vertical is this? What does it smell like? Is this an open sewer under these grates? Or is this just simply a ventilation from a subway? And every 10 minutes, and lights, you describe the lights dancing up through the grate. Or maybe it's a combination of both. Unfortunately, it looks like one of the sewer lines burst again, and every time the subway comes through, you are, for anyone that's on that grate, you're sitting first row at SeaWorld and you're in the splash zone, my friend. Bring this up. Talk about this stuff. GMV has experience in the country and the city. That's why I like so much the 2077 sound. Savor the flavor, says Rip Artist. After fob to rip, well, you hear sirens afterwards. Typically, we wake up to police taping off an area about 6 to 8 hours later. This is everyone's trying to get to work. It sounds much like Night City. After fob, we hear sirens all night long. I hear them now. That is Tiger Claw's turf. Yep, dingo. Wait, do luchador fights not randomly break out in your neighborhood? Well, I mean, that could be the thing too, because look, we have some sort of a street fight up here. We have someone who's dressed in a cape and kind of looking off to the side. We have another character who's is wearing like some 80s like a gym outfit here. You know, very, very comfortable on the crotch, we'll say. You know, just sort of like looking down, seeing what's happening. You have over here, you have a person with big green hair just sort of hollering out over the side. What's going on? Luchadors are fighters for freedom of the people, and I'm an American, says Delport. So yeah, they're pretty common. You just don't always recognize them for what they are. GMV says it's good to use more than just one or two senses as well when GMing. Sights and sounds are the most common ways to describe things, but don't forget the smells, the temperature or humidity, and the stuff they can feel. Just like the rust crumbling away as they hang perilously from the pipe. Yes. Feel is something as well that as a DM, GM, ST, you might just expect your players to take on themselves. In this world, how do you think this person look at his augmentations? I wonder, does he feel things the same way as a person without an augmented hand? Is his feeling nothing more than touching something and getting its temperature, its humidity? Like, is his feeling nothing more than data to him? By the way, this is also why the more augmented you are, you tend to grow closer and closer towards cyberpsychosis, because you become detached from things. But this place would be completely different if I described it as very moist, as very humid. Like, or almost this is all but a fish tank with a bunch of brightly colored fish swirling around, fighting, feeding, lurking, you know, digging through the gravel. Or what if this is a very dry day? Just describing the humidity, the feel of the place, as GMV said, absolutely continues to tell the tale. I need post-its to remind me to engage the five senses as a player too. I use sense questions to encourage GMs to, yeah, and thank you for doing that as the player, because a lot of times, and it's through no like negligence, like purposeful negligence, there's just some things that we presume happen as human beings. Oh, you're in the desert. Well, I expect you to feel hot and dry. But there's a difference. What if the desert isn't hot and dry? Or what if it's hot and dry, but you really want to reinforce that it's hot and dry? And so you say it, and you talk about the sand blowing against your face. And that if it keeps up much longer, it's almost like sandpaper is just going to grind you away. So, there is another part. There is another part of the immersion that we can certainly talk about. And let's go to... Let's go to something with the ambiance that I would like. You all may have noticed, and by the way, I'll give a link to you here. If you have the book, and I'll show it in the book as well. This is another way to immerse yourself into a setting. I try and do this in D&D, and in a setting like this that actually has a lexicon of street slang that you can add to. You don't have to use everything if you don't want to. I would highly suggest looking at the street slang section of this book. If this doesn't help give you a way to further immerse everyone, including yourself as the player or the GM. Hang on, let me find the how you stay in touch. Cyberpsychosis. Oh, street slang. Yep, that's right. It's right in the beginning. So, in the book, you're going to find a whole section on this. I know I've been in that position. The GMs, yeah, you're trying to juggle 10 things in their head. You might assume they're seeing the pictures in their brain. You did that with a campaign taking place in the Ice Age. Different senses are great to use when a player wants to inspect something. For example, a few sessions ago, a player took some bread to an old homeless guy. They were a little caught off guard when I told her that he smelled like lavender and vanilla and had surprisingly soft yet strong hands. Yes, those are very good clues to pick up on things. Good pun, by the way, Cyneo. Puns and references, highest form of literature and art. I appreciate it, and humor too. Delport says, if you want it for your D&D games, the second edition content for Planescape had street slang for the city of Sigil, pretty much like the most cyberpunk D&D setting I've ever seen. Yep, and so if you come up with this on your own for your own world, or even for your own cyberpunk game, incorporate this into your game. Now, stuff like this, AI, we already use terms like that in our real world. But what if you want to go on a heist? Use the word bonanza in this context. The location of a big score, like an abandoned corporate facility. I was just about to say I tend to default to a weird mix of Shadowrun slang and Sigil cant in the cyberpunk settings, because we already live in a cyberpunk dystopia. Yeah. A booster, any member of a gang that affects cyberware, leather clothing, and random violence. Are you chilled? My question to you all, are you chilled? Chilled is to be shui. Wait a minute. Shui, what's that? I don't see shui as a, where did I get shui, everyone? Let's test your culture. Hey, satirical sage. Je parle un peu de français, Delport. Un peu. Satirical sage got it. Shui is from Batman Beyond, because that was their word for cool. You want to run that in Cyberpunk because you think shui is cool? Then anyone who's chilled is very shui. Here is probably the most popular. Chombada, chumba, chum, a neo-Afro-American slang for friend or family member. Crescent Fresh says, yep, sup, chum. This is probably the most popular piece of slang from Cyberpunk. And it's amazing. Just sprinkle, just a little sprinkle. Throw in a couple things here and there. Just call someone chum on the street. Or when you're making characters, right? You aren't even in the story yet. And you're the GM asking your potential players, tell me about your character. Are they cybered up? Whether or not they know it, you're helping them get into the game. Is your character cybered up? To get as much cyberware implanted as possible before going over the edge. Yeah, they nearly flatlined me. What's your handle? Now, this is not new. This is not new in terms of our real world. And I use this often. When you all join our Discord, ! Discord, I ask that you make sure that your Discord name is adjusted to match your Twitch handle, because it makes communicating a lot easier, especially if you all are getting in on the various events and you win prizes or all that other stuff. Heretic, you grok. Polymer one-shot, any cheap plastic pistol, usually in the 5 to 9 millimeter range. Almost like what we would call something like a Saturday night special, although that's a 22. Yeah, are we green? Nah, my chum isn't a chrome junkie. He's mostly organic, says Satirical Sage. Fun fact about Sigil Cant, Burke wasn't invented by TSR. It's Cockney rhyming slang. Burke equals Berkshire Hunt equals see you next Tuesday. Another good one is gonk, which equates to idiot. So not even everything here in the book. This is probably the bigger, right? These are the more solid terms. Hey, be cool. That's a samurai. Well, what does a samurai mean in this context? But you're getting into it. Your character is a part of that world. And so I did bring up the fan wiki, right? And I'll post it again if any of you are just recently joining. We have an even bigger, right? Because gonk wasn't in the wasn't in the book one here, but here we have a gonk, an idiot, fool, or schmuck. Gaijin, but also references Benny. Benny. An out-of-towner. See Gaijin. And I love that it's self-referential, right? Boga, Spanish, vogue, that which is in fashion. Yo, he's Boga. Because Boga is a very important thing in this setting. Talking about immersion, style and the way you carry yourself means a lot. It's not as heavily stressed in a game like D&D, where, maybe there's something circumstantial, but people don't really care. Necessarily, are you wearing peasant clothes or something? Heck, half the time, PCs are wandering through town in full arms and armor. And this is like a farming village. And people are probably going to look at them like, what's going on? In this setting, your fashion is very important. There's even a face down combat, that requires fashion. How do you look? How have you primped yourself and prepared yourself? Isn't it interesting? In this world, you could effectively beat a boss fight by T-posing for dominance and looking ab-fab for it. Hi, Tony. Good to see you. Yep, different forms of samurai and ronin. Stop those gonks now, or they're gonna flatline the VIP. I wish more D&D GMs would incorporate things like that. And it, it's a sign in different ways of. It could be just the age, wisdom, or experience of the DM for the D&D game, or if a particular module really stresses it. But that's why, Cyneo, I wanted to really stress this about getting used to Cyberpunk as a different type of role-playing game. Again, many of us have met through D&D, and that's absolutely fine. That was my very first RPG. I love D&D, all right? But the scale of things and the way that the stories play out are generally different. Focus on different things. Especially if you're looking at even official sources. Artalsorian Games does not sanitize their book and system like Wizards of the Coast sanitizes Dungeons and Dragons. The topics and the things that you encounter in Cyberpunk tend to be grittier, street level, the human condition. Where D&D is more about just going out into the world and having an amazing, epic, big damn hero, throw down the evil gods or topple the wizard's tower or whatever, which is great. They're just two different forms of role-playing that focus on two different forms of confrontation and escalation. If any of you play Vampire the Masquerade, Cyberpunk is going to feel a lot closer to home for you. Or if you play Cyberpunk, give Vampire the Masquerade a try. I think you'll like it. Dingo says, Choom, you can't have that chrome, it's too Draga. Heretic says, well, I certainly didn't look like a 42-year-old preschool custodian when I was at the shop. Delport says, hot tip, knowing more of these allows you to sprinkle one in here and there. Using them too densely, yeah, if you use it too densely, it becomes super intense and you get that, hello, fellow. Do you know the meme with, wow, why am I derping on his name? Oh my god. Anyway, he has the skateboard over his shoulder, is trying to fit in the high school. Yeah, Steve Buscemi, thank you. Right? He's got his hat on backwards. Hello, fellow kids. So don't feel like you don't have to memorize this. Using the slang is not a requirement to play. If you just call people choom, you've done more than a lot of other people. I promise, okay? And if you want to work in stuff here and there, or if you have a note as a GM that this NPC calls everyone a gaijin or a Benny, even if that character knows that they've lived in the city their whole life, right? You could introduce this stuff as just background noise, or as elements through the NPCs, and then they go, "Oh, that's the NPC that called us a gaijin." Then what was up with that? I've lived in Night City my whole life. Yeah, go for maybe one word in a sentence, or even just one word in a sentence in a paragraph. Estwild. Yeah, you play it cool. Sound like you fit in, right? And so it's fine over time. It's fine over time to sprinkle it in, and then as you and your players get more and more accustomed to the slang, to using it, then maybe after a couple years, you've developed your own take on Night City, your own megapolis, your own whatever, and you are fully, you are using every word that you can because you are so much more comfortable with it now. And you are slowly taking on this otherworldliness because you have immersed yourself a little bit at a time. You dipped your toe, now you're at your ankle, now you're at the middle of your shin, you're knee deep, now you're waist deep, and then finally you go, you know what? Oh, the water's cold, but I'm going to take the plunge, and bloop, then you're all in. But that could take a year or two. But in the meantime, what are you doing? You're having fun and playing, and just because 2 years ago you weren't using the words, you weren't using the words in a fluent sense, doesn't mean you still didn't enjoy yourselves and you understood exactly what everything was going on. In the movie Heat, Robert De Niro's crew get outed because one of his team calls everyone slick. Rip Artist says, the wife says that if I'm talking to someone with an accent, that after a few minutes I pop out with that accent. Very, very chameleon of you, Rip Artist. Satirical says, I always think of Mr. Burns dressing up as a student and talking to Principal Skinner using the vernacular of Burns' school days. Let's see, we have a Sam Jackson reference as well. Benny being used like noob. He doesn't mean you are new, just that you're acting like it. Anything more, it'll likely sound a bit forced, and now you sound like someone from an outside. Yep, exactly, Estwild. So what have we gone over? Descriptive storytelling. Keep it close. Keep it to the streets, because that's where this game takes place. Use the vocabulary. And we're going to go into a couple other ways to immerse yourself. But I need to get up and take a quick break. So I will be back in just a bit, everyone. Enjoy the new break screen that we have, and when I come back, I want to go over a couple like the next step to get a little bit deeper into describing the stories and to describe the feel of the game to your players. We're not going to talk mechanics, we're not going to talk numbers, don't worry about stats and skills and all that. We're still keeping this very approachable so that we have our context, because our context plus our data will give us actual information. And so we're going to start with the context. I'll be right back.